Welcome back to another high-octane session of Simplified UPSC by PPP.
And if you're tuning in, we have a pretty good idea why you're here.
Exactly. Let's be honest. You're not just looking for background noise or some light entertainment.
No, not at all.
You are looking for a strategic weapon. You're here to sharpen your arsenal to tackle, well, one of the toughest exams on the planet.
The UPSC Civil Services Examination.
And today, we are not just skimming the surface. We're going deep.
Fathom deep. Right into the sociological heart of India.
That's it. We're here to take these dense academic topics and, deconstruct them piece by piece.
And then rebuild them into high-scoring, analytical answers. The kind that make an examiner really sit up and take notice.
Precisely. Now, before we unleash this absolute knowledge bomb on you, I have a very specific and a very important call to action.
Yes, this is important.
If you want to improve your retention, if you want us to keep bringing this super useful content that actually helps you clear the exam,
Please hit that subscribe button on the channel right now.
we are on a mission here to simplify the complex, and we absolutely want you on this journey with us.
And for those of you who are able and who find real, tangible value in what we do here, we have a humble request.
We do. We'd ask you to consider supporting us on Patreon.
It really does help keep the lights on. It keeps the research flowing and allows us to dig into these sources without any compromise.
A massive, massive shout out to all our current supporters.
Yes, thank you.
You guys make this content creation possible. You are absolutely the real MVPs of this community.
We couldn't do it without you.
Also, please don't forget to like this video and share your valuable comments below. We read them, we analyze them.
And they really do help the algorithm find other serious aspirants just like you.
One more critically important notification before we begin.
Ah, yes, the notes.
Free notes with practice previous year questions or PYQs are available right now on our public Telegram channel.
You really don't want to miss those. They are basically the blueprint for everything we're about to discuss.
And for the serious heavy hitters, the ones who want to leave absolutely nothing to chance,
We have the premium access.
this is our private Telegram library. You get access to all videos in this series at once, organized premium notes, extra PYQs, and this is the real game changer.
The model means answers?
Yes. Just direct message us on the public Telegram channel to join that exclusive group.
Okay, with the business out of the way.
Let's do it. Let's unpack today's topic.
Huh.
We are diving into Chapter 15 of Essential Sociology by Nitin Sangwan.
And the topic is tribal communities in India.
This is a heavyweight topic, make no mistake.
Absolutely. It's consistently in the exams, it's sociologically incredibly rich, and it's so politically relevant in contemporary India.
So our mission today is crystal clear. We're going to deconstruct the sociology of tribes.
But, and this is the key, we're linking every single concept to PYQs from 2016 all the way through 2024.
We want to ensure that by the end of this deep dive, you are not just informed.
You are exam ready.
Precision is the name of the game here. So to set the stage, let's start with some hard data.
Okay. According to the 2011 census, tribes constitute about 8.6% of India's population.
8.6%. And in numbers.
That's roughly 104.5 million people.
Wow. Okay, 104 million. Let's put that in perspective.
If the tribal population of India were its own country, it would be the 13th largest country in the world.
That is a staggering statistic. I mean, I think we often fall into this trap of thinking about tribal communities as these small fringe groups living on the periphery.
But we're not. We're talking about a demographic the size of Mexico or the Philippines living right here within our borders.
So they're a significant demographic backbone of the nation.
Exactly. But here is the sociological catch. Unlike the caste system, which is, defined by hierarchy, occupation, and religious sanction within the Hindu fold.
Tribes face a unique set of challenges.
Completely. Their issues revolve around integration versus autonomy, definition versus identity, and they have unique demographics, too.
Oh, like what?
For instance, their sex ratio is 990 females per 1,000 males.
990. That's significantly better than the national average.
It is, which
Yeah.
usually implies a more egalitarian gender status, doesn't it?
It does, and that's a key characteristic we should definitely explore.
But at the same time, they lag significantly in literacy, health, and economic indicators.
So you have this paradox.
Yes, a paradox of, you could say, social egalitarianism mixed with deep economic marginalization.
Okay, so let's dive into that first major hurdle you mentioned, the definitional dilemma.
Right.
To a layman, or even to me before we really dug into this chapter, a tribe seems, I don't know, easy to spot. Distinct costumes, distinct languages, maybe they live in forests.
And you'd think so, but in sociology, nothing is ever that simple.
Never.
If it were simple, it wouldn't be on the UPSC syllabus.
Good point.
The core problem here is that defining a tribe in India is notoriously difficult. I would argue much, much harder than defining caste.
Really? Why is that? I would have thought caste was the more complex beast with all its subcastes, varnas, rituals.
See, caste has a theological and a structural basis in Hinduism. You have clear markers: purity, pollution, hierarchy, occupational specialization. It's rigid.
Okay.
But tribe is, in many ways, a colonial construct. The British needed to categorize people for the census, for administration.
Right, they love their boxes.
They did. And the Imperial Gazetteer of India famously gave a definition that was, well, let's just say it was delightfully vague.
Also,
They described a tribe as a collection of families bearing a common name, speaking a common dialect, occupying or professing a particular territory, and usually endogamous.
wait, let me stop you there. Collection of families, common name, common territory, endogamous.
Yes.
Doesn't that apply to almost any dominant caste group in a rural village?
Yeah.
If I go to a village in Haryana or UP, that description fits them perfectly.
You've spotted the trap immediately. That is exactly why the definition failed.
It's too broad.
Exactly. A caste group in a village also has a common name, often a common dialect, and is strictly endogamous. They marry within the group. This ambiguity is precisely why the UPSC loves asking about it.
Right, like that 2020 Paper 2 question.
Definitional problems of tribes. It's a recurring theme. You have to understand that the boundary between tribe and caste is porous. It's fuzzy.
So how did the colonial administrators try to distinguish them then? They must have had a way to force them into their neat little boxes.
The British, particularly administrators like Herbert Risley, viewed tribes through a very binary lens.
Binary as in.
They saw tribes as distinct, isolated animists. They wanted to draw a very hard line. To them, you were either a Hindi subject bound by caste, or you were a tribal animist living in the forest, worshipping nature and spirits, completely separate from mainstream civilization.
But then comes the Indian sociological counterpunch.
Indeed.
Enter G.S. Ghurye. I know he's a giant in this field. What was his take on this British binary?
Ghurye is absolutely essential here. You cannot write a good answer on tribes without quoting Ghurye.
Okay.
He completely rejected the British view of isolation. He argued that tribes in India have never been truly isolated.
So this idea of them living in a bubble was a myth.
In his view, yes. He argued they've always been in contact with Hindu society trading forest produce, interacting at local fairs, even sharing myths and deities. He famously and somewhat controversially called them,
Backward Hindus.
yes, backward Hindus.
That phrase carries so much weight, it sounds almost derogatory by modern standards.
It does, and it was controversial even back then, but we have to look at his sociological argument. He wasn't trying to insult them, he was trying to classify them.
So what did he mean by it?
He argued that tribes are essentially imperfectly integrated Hindus. They've assimilated to various degrees. Some are fully Hinduized, some partially. He saw their backwardness not as a civilizational difference, but as a result of them being at the bottom of the socioeconomic pile.
So he believed the British created the category of tribe artificially to sort of divide and rule.
That was a key part of his argument, yes. He saw it as a colonial tool to fragment the Indian population.
So for Ghurye, the solution was simple. Assimilation. Just bring them into the fold.
Yes. He believed the separation was artificial and harmful. But there's a very strong counterview to Ghurye,
Which is?
that tribes are fundamentally different. Many scholars argue they lack the rigid hierarchy of caste. They don't have the concepts of purity and pollution in the same way.
And their social structure is more egalitarian.
Much more. And crucially, they have a communitarian view of resource ownership. In a tribe, the land often belongs to the community. In a caste society, it's all about private property, often in a feudal sense.
Okay, this is where that famous concept comes in, the continuum.
Exactly.
Instead of a binary, a black and white tribe versus caste, we have a sliding scale.
Correct. This is F.G. Bailey's concept of the Tribe-Caste Continuum. Imagine a line. On one end, you have a pure, ideal type, tribe-isolated, egalitarian, animistic, maybe a hunter-gatherer group.
And on the other end,
On the other end, you have a pure, ideal type, caste hierarchical, specialized, Hindu, settled agrarian.
and most communities in India fall somewhere in the middle of that line.
Precisely. They aren't fully one or the other. They're in a state of transition.
It makes so much more sense. It's not black and white, it's shades of gray. And didn't Surjit Singha add another layer to this?
He did. Surjit Sinha introduced the tribe-peasant continuum. He looked at it from an economic angle.
Okay, how so?
He asked, how did tribes historically evolve? He found that as they adopted settled agriculture, using the plow instead of shifting cultivation, they naturally started fitting into the lower rungs of the caste system as an agrarian class.
So technology and the economy drove the identity shift.
That was his argument.
Right. So when a tribe stops hunting and gathering and starts farming a piece of land, maybe land owned by a landlord, they essentially become a peasant caste. They enter the economy, and by default, they enter the caste structure.
Exactly. And this connects directly to those PYQs that ask if tribe and caste are antithetical.
And the answer is clearly no.
The sociological answer is no. They are fluid interacting categories. You see this in the 2021 and 2022 papers where they ask you to compare these different perspectives. You have to discuss this fluidity, this continuum.
Got it. Okay, let's unpack this geographically now. Segment 2, mapping the landscape. We can't treat all tribes as a single monolithic group.
Absolutely not.
A Naga tribe in the northeast is a whole different world from a Gond tribe in central India.
Completely different. The expert committee on this typically divides tribal India into 5 major zones. The first, and politically very volatile, is the Northeast Zone.
That's Assam, Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya.
Correct. The key feature here is concentration.
What do you mean by concentration?
In states like Mizoram or Nagaland, tribes make up 60 to 95% of the total population.
They're the majority.
Yes, they belong to the Mongoloid racial stock and speak Tibeto-Burman languages.
And what's the sociological implication of that high concentration? Why does it matter that they're the majority?
Autonomy. Because they are the majority in their specific regions, their political movements are about independence or statehood. They aren't fighting to be included in the Hindu caste system.
They're fighting to preserve a distinct ethnic and national identity.
Precisely. This is where you see the insurgency movements, the demands for separate flags or constitutions. They operate from a position of relative demographic and political strength compared to tribes elsewhere.
That makes sense. Okay, now let's move to the heart of India, the central or middle zone.
This covers Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, parts of Andhra Pradesh. This is the demographic center of tribal India.
The heartland.
Yes, about 85% of the total tribal population lives here. Gonds, Santhals, Bhils, Orions. Racially, they are largely classified as Proto-Australoid.
And their issues are different from the Northeast.
Vastly different. These are the areas that are incredibly rich in minerals, coal, iron ore, bauxite.
But the people are poor.
Exactly. The central zone faces the brunt of displacement due to mining, industrialization, and big dams. Here, the struggle isn't about nationhood in the same way. It's about land rights and sheer survival against a mainstream that is constantly encroaching on them.
So they aren't isolated. They're being swallowed up.
That's a very powerful way to put it, yes.
What a contrast. Northeast is about preserving political identity. Central is about economic survival and land. What about the South?
The southern zone, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, here we have smaller and in some cases more primitive groups like the Todas of the Nilgiris or the Chinchas.
Smaller populations.
Yeah, their numbers are small and they face issues of assimilation. They are often surrounded by dominant caste societies and are rapidly losing their traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyles. They don't have the political numbers of the Northeast or the demographic mass of central India to resist effectively.
And then we have the Western and Himalayan zones, just to round it out.
Right. The western zone covers Rajasthan and Gujarat. Think of the Pils and Meenas. The Meenas are actually a fascinating case of successful integration into the state administration.
In the Himalayas.
You have groups like the Gadis and Gujars who are often pastoralists migrating with their herds. Their issues are tied to grazing rights and changing climate patterns.
So why does this mapping matter so much for a UPSC answer?
Because if a question asks about tribal problems and you write a generic answer about poverty and illiteracy, you'll get average marks. But if you write, the problems of tribes vary regionally. For instance, in the Northeast, the primary issue is ethnicity and insurgency, rooted in their demographic majority, while in central India, the core problem is development-induced displacement due to mining. You show sociological depth.
You show that you understand the landscape, not just a textbook definition.
Exactly. That's the difference between a 1020 and a 1420 answer.
Got it. Okay, let's move to segment 3. The colonial disruptor. We often hear that tribal problems really began with the British. Is that a fair assessment, or is it just blaming history?
It is sociologically accurate to say the British completely and fundamentally altered the tribal trajectory.
How so? What was it like before them?
Before the British, tribes largely had a free life. They were, for all practical purposes, the lords of the forest. They might have paid some occasional tribute to local kings, but those kings didn't really interfere in their daily lives, their customs, their resource use.
And the British changed that with laws and regulations.
Specifically, the Forest Acts. This is absolutely crucial for any answer on this topic.
Why were these acts so impactful?
The British needed huge amounts of timber for building railways and ships for the Royal Navy, so they passed acts that classified forests as reserved and protected.
And what did that mean on the ground?
It meant that overnight, the people who had lived in and from those forests for centuries were legally classified as encroachers on government land.
Wow. So that's the impact of colonial policy's theme we see in so many PYQs. It literally turned owners into trespassers on their own land.
Precisely. And it wasn't just about the land. They introduced the market economy in a very aggressive way.
What do you mean?
They demanded revenue in cash, not in kind, not in forest produce. This forced the tribes into a system they didn't understand, and it brought in two new figures into the tribal heartland.
The moneylender and the zamindar.
The outsiders, the daikas, as they were called. The tribes had no concept of compound interest or complex written contracts.
And that led to massive debt bondage.
Massive debt bondage, and ultimately the loss of their land to these moneylenders. Then the British banned jam, or shifting cultivation, calling it wasteful and primitive.
Which disrupted their entire social and agricultural fabric.
Completely. They forced tribes to become settled, interactional peasants, which was a role they were not prepared for.
And then there is the darkest law of them all, the Criminal Tribes Act of 1871. I still find it hard to believe this was a real law.
It was a truly draconian piece of legislation. The British branded entire communities, entire tribes as criminal by birth.
By birth.
Yes. If you were born into a certain tribe, you were legally considered a criminal from the day you were born. You were fingerprinted, your movements were monitored and restricted.
What's a sociological insight here? I mean, how does that affect them today?
It created a deep, lasting, and structural stigma. Even though the act was repealed after independence and they were denotified, becoming denotified tribes or DNTs, the police and wider society still often view them with suspicion.
So it established a pattern of discrimination that hasn't fully gone away.
Not at all. It's a legacy they are still fighting against.
We also have to touch on the role of Christian missionaries. They were very active during this period.
Yes, and their role is very complex, what sociologists would call a dual role. It's not black and white.
Okay, what were the two sides?
On one hand, they provided the only education and healthcare available in many of these remote areas. They created written scripts for tribal languages for the first time. They brought a certain kind of modernization.
There's always a but.
But sociologists like G.S. Ghurye argued that they also alienated tribes from their indigenous roots and from the broader Indian culture. He believed they fostered a separatist mindset, especially in the Northeast.
So you have development and education on one side, but cultural alienation and potential division on the other.
Exactly. It's a very complex legacy.
This friction between preserving culture and modernizing brings us perfectly to segment 4, the great debate integration versus autonomy.
This is arguably the most critical theoretical part of this entire chapter. It's the ideological battleground.
And you have 3 main camps, right?
Broadly speaking, yes. First, you have the isolationists, a view largely associated with Verrier Elwin, at least in his early years.
And his big idea was the national park theory.
Yes, the national park theory.
It sounds, I don't know, a bit dehumanizing, like a zoo.
And his critics, especially nationalist leaders at the time, attacked him for that exact reason. They called it a zoo approach.
So what was Elwin's argument?
He argued that tribes were happy and content in their simplicity, and that every time they came into contact with the civilized world, they were exploited, corrupted, and destroyed. So his solution was to leave them alone, preserve their culture in a protected bubble.
And the second camp was Ghurye, the assimilationist.
Right. Ghurye said isolation is a zoo approach and is completely impractical anyway. He argued that since tribes are backward Hindus, the only way forward is to actively assimilate them into the mainstream economy and society. He wanted them to join the national fold completely.
But independent India didn't choose either of these extremes, did it?
No. We chose the middle path.
Integration.
Integration, a path championed by Jawaharlal Nehru. This is where the famous tribal Panchsheel comes in.
The 5 principles.
Yes. Nehru wanted to preserve their unique culture while providing the benefits of modern development. He famously said he didn't want to turn them into second-rate copies of people from the mainstream, but he also didn't want to keep them as museum pieces.
It's a delicate balance. Let's break down the Panchsheel. These 5 principles are absolute gold for writing answers.
They are. Number 1, people should develop along the lines of their own genius.
Meaning no imposition of our values on them.
Exactly. Number 2, tribal rights in land and forests should be respected, a direct response to colonial policies.
Makes sense.
Number 3, we should try to train and build up a team of their own people to do the work of administration and development.
So avoiding flooding their areas with outsiders.
Yes. Number 4, we should not over-administer these areas or overwhelm them with a multiplicity of schemes. Keep it simple.
And the 5th one, which I think is just beautiful.
It is. We should judge results not by statistics or the amount of money spent, but by the quality of human character that has evolved.
Not by statistics.
Yeah.
It feels like we have completely forgotten that one in modern governance.
We absolutely have. The modern bureaucratic machine loves statistics, targets, and reports. But Nehru's vision was deeply humanistic.
And the PYQs in 2021 and 2022 explicitly ask you to compare Ghurye and Elwin, or to discuss the relevance of this Panchsheel today.
They do. And the main critique today is often that while we preach the integration of Panchsheel, we actually practice the assimilation of Ghurye.
A very powerful critique. We'll get back to that in the end. But first, let's talk about what happens when these policies fail. Segment 5, tribal unrest and movements.
Unrest is the natural, logical reaction to exploitation and marginalization.
And we can map this historically.
Yes. In the colonial era, the movements were largely reactionary. The Santhal Hool of 1855 is a classic example. It was a direct, violent revolt against the Dekas, the moneylenders, the traders, and the British police who protected them.
And of course, Birsa Munda. He's a national icon now.
The Birsa Munda movement, or the Ogalan, was fascinating sociologically because it was a messianic movement.
What does that mean?
Birsa Munda claimed to be a messenger of God. He wasn't just a political leader, he was a prophet. He promised his followers a return to a golden age, a satyug, free of outsiders and oppression. It wasn't just a political revolt, it was a religious and cultural revitalization movement.
And moving to post-independence India, the nature of the movements changed, right?
Right.
They evolved.
Yes. We can see 3 main types emerging. First, you have the agrarian and forest-based movements.
Like the Naxalbari movement.
The Naxalbari movement, in its origins, was a tribal peasant revolt against landlords over land rights. It's fundamentally a class struggle.
Okay, what's the second type?
The demand for statehood or political autonomy. The movements that led to the formation of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh are prime examples.
So the tribes realized they needed political power to protect their resources.
Exactly. They saw that controlling the state government was the only way to control the mines and forests in their land.
And the third type?
Ethnicity and identity movements, which are seen most clearly in the Northeast. The Naga movement is the prime example here. It's not about land in the same way. It's about being a distinct nation with a distinct history and culture.
I see. And how do sociologists classify all these different movements? I have Surjit Sinha and Virginia Sykes in my notes here.
Surjit Sinha gave a useful classification: reformist, rebellion, and secessionist. But Virginia Sykes, a contemporary sociologist, gives a very modern and crucial insight.
Which is?
He talks about the rise of a tribal middle class.
A tribal middle class. That's interesting.
Yes. Thanks to reservations in education and government jobs, a layer of educated, articulate tribal elites has emerged. Doctors, lawyers, professors, bureaucrats.
And what's their role?
Sykes argues that they are the ones now leading the new assertion of identity. They are using the language of the state laws, the Constitution, human rights to fight the state. It's no longer just bows and arrows, it's Supreme Court petitions and political lobbying in Delhi.
That's a crucial shift. It's intellectual militancy alongside or instead of physical resistance.
Precisely.
Now, let's get into the dark side of modern development. Segment 6, the crisis of development, displacement, and alienation.
This brings us to the great tribal paradox.
The paradox being?
The regions where tribes live, central India, Odisha, Jharkhand, are the richest regions in the entire country in terms of natural resources. Coal, bauxite, iron ore, dense forests.
Yet the people living there are the poorest.
Exactly, the resource curse.
The term internal colonialism is often used here.
Yes, and it's a fitting one. The idea is that the mainstream economy, the cities, the industries, extracts resources from these tribal areas to fuel national growth, but the tribes themselves only bear the cost of that extraction.
And the primary cause is displacement.
The statistics are damning. Tribes are about 8.6% of India's population, but they constitute nearly 40% of all the people displaced by dams, mines, and industrial projects since independence.
40%. That is
Yeah.
a grossly disproportionate burden.
It is. And it creates what sociologists call development-induced displacement. This was a direct question in the 2023 paper, too.
And when you displace a tribe, you're not just taking their house.
You're taking everything. You take their livelihood, their forest, which is their supermarket, and their pharmacy. You take their sacred groves where their deities reside, their community structure.
You turn a self-sufficient farmer or forager into an unskilled wage laborer in a slum somewhere.
It's cultural destruction, cultural ethnocide.
We have some famous case studies for this. The Narmada Bachao Andolan is probably the most well-known.
It's a classic, yes. It showed the world that big dams aren't just engineering marvels, they're often human rights crises.
But you mentioned another case is even more sociologically interesting.
Yes, the case of the Ghurye Hills in Odisha.
This was the Dongria Khan tribe versus the mining giant Vedanta.
That's the one. The Ghurye Khan believed that the Ghurye Hill is their living god, their Nyam Raja. Vedanta wanted to mine the entire hilltop for bauxite.
And the tribe refused.
They refused. They essentially said, you cannot mine our god. And what's amazing is that the Supreme Court of India actually upheld their right to decide through their Gram Sabhas.
And the Gram Sabhas all voted no.
Unanimously. It was a historic victory for a sacred worldview over a purely profane commercial interest.
That connects perfectly to the broader issue of alienation of land. Even when they aren't displaced by a big project, they still lose their land.
Yes, through debt, through trickery, through illegal Benami transfers to non-tribals. The laws exist to protect their land, but they are often flouted.
And we see the results of this alienation in their health and education indicators.
Absolutely. High malnutrition, high rates of anemia, especially among women and children. The gap between tribal literacy and national literacy is closing, which is good news, but it's still significant, and dropout rates are very high.
So what is the government doing? Or what is it supposed to be doing? Segment 7 is about contemporary issues and the way forward. We do have safeguards in the Constitution.
The Constitution provides some of the most robust safeguards for Indigenous people found anywhere in the world. Specifically, we have Schedule V and Schedule VI.
What's the difference?
Schedule V covers the tribal areas in central India. It creates tribal advisory councils and gives the governor of the state immense power to stop any normal law from applying to these areas if it's found to be harmful to the tribes.
And Schedule 6?
Schedule 6 is for the Northeast Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. It goes much further. It creates autonomous district councils, which have their own legislative, judicial, and executive powers. They are like mini-states within a state, with powers to make laws on land, forests, marriage, and so on.
And then there's PESA, the Panchayats Extension to Scheduled Areas Act of 1996.
PESA is revolutionary, at least on paper. It's designed to extend the Panchayati Raj system to tribal areas, but with modifications that respect their traditions.
And this main feature is empowering the Gram Sabha.
Yes. It says the Gram Sabha, the entire village assembly, is supreme. It must be consulted before any land acquisition. It owns minor forest produce. It has the power to manage local markets and stop money lending. It decentralizes power right down to the grassroots.
And finally, the Forest Rights Act, the FRA of 2006.
This was a major paradigm shift. For the first time, the state formally admitted we made a historical injustice.
How so?
It recognized that tribes and other forest dwellers have been living there for centuries, and it gives them individual rights to the land they are farming and community rights to manage and protect their traditional forests. It changes their legal status from encroacher to owner.
But, and there is always a but with these great laws.
The implementation gap. The laws are fantastic. The reality on the ground is often messy and disappointing.
The Zaxa Committee report in 2014 was quite critical of this.
It was scathing. The committee found that the administrative system has fundamentally failed to understand the tribal worldview. Officials are often ignorant, apathetic, or corrupt. PESA is often ignored by state governments. Gram Sabhas are bypassed. The FRA implementation is slow and full of hurdles.
And this failure of the state feeds right back into identity politics.
Yes. As Zaxon notes, tribal politics has increasingly shifted from being class-based, fighting for better wages or land as peasants, to being identity-based.
The "we are Adivasi, we are indigenous, we are distinct people" argument.
Exactly. It's a defense mechanism against the constant pressure of cultural degradation caused by modernization.
Modernization, or as some sociologists would call it, Hinduization or Christianization.
Correct. The fear is the loss of their unique languages, their traditions, their worldview. When a tribal child goes to a mainstream school, the medium of instruction is usually the state language, not their tribal dialect. They are taught to be civilized, which often implicitly means forgetting their own heritage.
This cultural genocide is a subtle but incredibly powerful threat.
It is.
Heavy stuff, but absolutely necessary to understand. Let's head to the outro and try to summarize this incredible journey.
We started with the definitional dilemma, how a vague colonial confusion gave way to the more nuanced idea of a tribe-caste continuum.
Right. Then we mapped the geography from the autonomy-seeking Northeast to the displaced Central Heartland.
We saw how colonial laws, especially the Forest Acts, broke their economic back, and how independent India tried to find a balance between integration and autonomy through Nehru's Panchsheel.
We discussed the long history of their movements, from Birsa Munda's prophetic arrows to the modern-day demands for statehood led by an educated middle class.
We analyzed the brutal, disproportionate cost of development, the crisis of displacement and land alienation.
And we ended by looking at the powerful legal shields like PESA and the Forest Rights Act that are, fighting a very tough battle against a deep-rooted implementation failure.
And the so what insight here, the thing you must include in your answers is this. The tribal question is not just about welfare or charity.
It's a test of Indian democracy itself.
Exactly. Can a modern nation-state accommodate peoples who have a different concept of ownership, a different relationship with nature, and a different sense of history? If we fail them, we fail the constitutional promise of pluralism and justice for all.
That is the line to write in your conclusion. And on that note, here's a provocative thought to leave you with.
Okay.
Is our current model of integration really just assimilation in disguise? By bringing development roads, schools, internet, markets, are we inevitably, even if unintentionally, erasing the very distinct tribal identity that we claim to be protecting?
Are we killing the culture to save the people?
A difficult, uncomfortable question, but one you must ponder.
Absolutely.
All right, friends, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. I have to make that humble request again. If this session helped clarify even one concept for you, please take a moment and hit subscribe. It helps us immensely.
And to our wonderful Patreon supporters, you keep the lights on, you keep the research team fed. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you.
Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment with your single biggest takeaway. We love reading those. And remember, head over to the public Telegram channel for those free notes and PYQs.
And for the truly serious aspirants, the private library is waiting. DM us on the public channel to join.
Keep learning, keep simplifying. We'll see you in the next deep dive.